It's time for Chai and Chat. Chai and Chat.
Welcome to another episode of Chai and Chat with Ranjit and Sundari, where we explore heritage, identity, family culture, and the experiences that shape who we are. Today, Ranjit, I'm delighted to say that we're joined by Mya Badhan, whom you know. So,
yes, welcome,
hello,
Mya.
Thank you for having me on this. Very excited.
Well, we're very excited to have you too. As Sundari said, I know you quite well, so we've worked together for a few years, and we currently work together in South Asian Heritage Month as West Midlands regional coordinators, but we'll get into that later on. And I'm going to embarrass you a little bit now by doing a quick introduction of the many things that you do. So bear with me and sit there while we listen to this. For the listeners, they will be delighted to hear all of the things you do. So Mya is a passionate social justice activist and a proud Black country girl dedicated to creating meaningful change through youth empowerment, equitable governance and decolonial practice. You've worked across grassroots and national organisations with a particular focus on community-led funding, inclusive leadership and structural change. So you currently juggle several roles. As I've said, you're the joint West Midlands coordinator for South Asian Heritage Month alongside myself, fundraising officer for an environmental charity. You hold strategic governance roles with Cooperatives UK, and you're a South Asian ambassador for Wolverhampton Grand Theatre. By the way, we also worked on that together as well. So, for the past 3 years, you've also played a key role in the Young Game Changers Fund, a national grant-making initiative designed to support youth empowerment. You're a third-generation British Asian woman, and your work is deeply informed by your lived experience. You're committed to amplifying marginalised voices, challenging institutional inequality, and creating spaces in which young people and underrepresented communities can lead. You also recognise that there is no single South Asian experience, and our communities are shaped by intersecting issues, including class, caste, gender, colorism, and religion. And you work to ensure that these complexities are reflected in decision-making, leadership, and inclusive practice. Now, I know a lot of these things about you, so I'm really looking forward to this chat. So, Mya, welcome to Chai and Chat. It's wonderful to have you with us.
Wow, Mya, what is it like hearing yourself being described that way?
I do really appreciate that. And yeah, Granji, obviously we know each other very well. But yeah, it'd be nice to get into some of the other stuff that I do.
So we normally begin each episode with a creative spark. And in this case, Mya has chosen a poem. So what a poem. Robert Browning's Porphyria's Lover. I'm looking forward to it.
So Porphyria's Lover by Robert Browning. The rain set early in tonight. The sullen wind was soon awake. It tore the elm tops down for spite and did its worst to vex the lake. I listened with heart fit to break when glided in Porphyria straight. She shut the cold out and the storm and kneeled and made the cheerless grate blaze up and all the cottage warm, which done she rose and from a form withdrew the dripping cloak and shawl, and laid her soiled gloves by untied, her hat and let the damp hair fall, and last she sat down by my side, and called to me when no voice replied. She put my arm around her waist and made her smooth white shoulder bare, and all her yellow hair displaced, and stooping made my cheek lie there, and spread all over her yellow hair, murmuring how she loved me. She, too weak for all her heart's endeavour to set free its struggling passion free, from pride and vainer ties dissever, to give herself to me forever. But passion sometimes would prevail, nor could tonight gay feast restrain a sudden thought of one so pale, for love of her and all in vain. So she was come through wind and rain. Be sure I looked up at her eyes, happy and proud. At last I knew Porphyria worshipped me, surprise, made my heart swell, and it grew. While I debated what to do. That perfect moment she was mine, mind fair and perfectly good, pure and good. I found a thing to do, and all her hair in one long yellow string I wound, 3 times around her 3 times her little throat around, and strangled her. No pain felt she. I'm quite sure she felt no pain. As I shook the book that holds a bee, I warily opened her lids again, laughed the blue eyes without a stain, and I untied the tress about her neck Her kiss once more blushed bright beneath my burning kiss. I propped her head up as before, only this time my shoulder bore her head which droops upon it still, the smiling rosy little head. So glad it has its utmost will, that all it scorned at once it fled. And I, its love, am gained instead. Porphyria's love, she guessed not how, her darling one wish would be heard. And thus we sit together now, all night long we have not stirred, and yet God has not said a word.
Wow. I mean, Robert Browning wrote this in the late 1800s, I would have thought. What a poem. It's about possession. I suppose at some point they could have called it everlasting love, but we have different words for it now. We could call it femicide. So the expression of power of one gender over another. These are just all the things I'm thinking. And of course, being a medic, also porphyria is a disease as well, a genetic disease, and manifests itself in so many ways. Maya, why this poem?
Yeah, I know we wanted to keep it a bit light at times. I chose this poem because I don't really have too much of a grounding in poetry, but I remember this poem specifically from my English GCSE class. I remember all of us sitting in class reading it. I just remember us being a bit traumatized as well, but just it stuck out to me all these years later when you said, potentially to pick a poem, and I was like, what poems do I know? This is one that stuck out to me. I mean, looking back over it, I echo everything that you said, Sundari. Like, for me, it is about control. It's inherently about control. And this dehumanization of women in the way they're controlling it's all about what the man desires and nothing to do with the woman as a person or what she would want. And there's massive overtones about misogyny and all of that within that. I have heard that some people interpreted it as almost pity and sort of like grace, that the woman had porphyria and the man was actually, it was an act of pity and care that he ended her life to take away her pain. And I just think that's a bizarre interpretation of the poem, but at the same time, that's the one thing with poems, and this poem in particular, that it is completely open to interpretation, and it's all about narrative. For me, this is inherently about control and about power, and about the way in which the world works. But again, that it kind of brings it all back in terms of the work that I do. It's all about how narratives are shaped and how that's influenced by external things and the kind of the context that we live in. So that's kind of why I chose this today. I mean, obviously I said to Ranjit earlier, Hakuna Matata was my second choice from Lion King. So it's a mix up between the two. But
I love that, the contrast between the two. But I was going to say, you've just really gone into my first question, which was around the idea of power and who controls a story connects very naturally with your work. So can we talk a little bit about the experience that have shaped you? So let's talk about your journey first of all.
This is interesting because I see myself, I don't know whether I'd call myself first generation, but I like to think I'm an emigre. So I didn't come over in a banana boat, but I did come over in a very nice aeroplane to England. And Ranjit, you would consider yourself second generation?
Yeah, second generation. So I was born here. My parents migrated here.
And you're third generation. So there's so many different generations here. So growing up as a third gen, what parts of your childhood and early diasporic experiences have shaped or stayed with you, really?
Like I said, I'm third generation. In some ways, you can count me as fourth because on my dad's side, it was his great-grandparents, his great-granddad and my granddad, who came over together first in the 50s. But on both sides of my family, the men came in the 1950s to work in the foundries in the Black Country, and then the women came over in the late 50s. So we've been in the Black Country ever since. So both my parents were born and brought up in the Black Country, and then I was born and brought up in the Black Country as well. And yeah, that's deeply shaped who I am. Identity is a tricky thing, so I think it constantly changes for me. Right now, I see myself as a Black Country Punjabi. I'm very much a Black Country kid, but my Punjabi-ness is always there as well. I mean, in terms of the Black Country, just living here, growing up in Tipton, it's completely shaped the way, just your experiences. Obviously, you've got the canals, you've got the accents, and I love it. I went to university in Sheffield. I'll go into that a bit later, but living there for 3 years, and that's great and all, but coming back, I do miss just being around things that are familiar, and you just feel like, I think there's a big warmth that you get in the Black country, and it's a place that's overlooked and demonized a lot, and it's a place full of resistance and resilience and a lot of strength and good people, and I think that gets overlooked a lot. And then in terms of my Punjabiness, I mean, obviously I'm third generation, so on both sides of my family, all my parents' siblings are all here, and all their kids and grandkids, that are all here. So it's a massive family, all in like a couple mile radius.
I love the way you talk about the Black country, because I'm from the Black country, as you know. So I'm from Willenhall. So the canals, family members working in foundries, all that sort of stuff around the Black country. And it was hard for people, wasn't it, in those days? And we hear those stories from parents and their parents.
I mean, I think that's one of the great injustices as well that continues, is that story. Those stories are never in part of these national narratives we have about British Asian migrations in this country. We never talk about the foundries and the mills as well in the north, the weaving mills and the factories and the foundries,
and the sewing factories
in the Midlands, the sweatshops essentially, that a lot of the women worked in, and the women in my family all worked in, and it's never really talked about at all. And I think that's one of the greatest injustices. It's something I would like to do a project about maybe going forward, is something around that, because as you know, history is one of my loves.
Can I just ask, this is one of the things with our podcast, we do go off on tangents.
Carry on.
It's made me think about those injustices. You talk about the Black country in quite an endearing way, and you say you went to university in Sheffield, you came back, and you do like it around it. I do as well. But there's something around those sort of how it was for people who experienced those injustices and experience of racism as well, which was terrible back in the 70s, 80s, and today as well. How do you think these things have shaped you and helped in your work and driven you to do the work that you do, because you do the work to help others?
Well, that's one of the big things. It's kind of like all these things, I think Black countryness, Punjabiness, living in those really tough times where it was 12 people in a tiny terrace, one up, one down terrace. It was all about helping each other and community, and that kind of community ethos and passion for helping others and uplifting others and being there in hard times has definitely been passed down to me. It kind of drives a lot of the stuff that I do. It's kind of definitely, in terms of my worldview, it's like, I don't know if you can have something as too much empathy, but like that might be me. Like, I used to feel sorry for food I hadn't eaten on my plate. I have a lot of empathy, and that sort of thing has definitely shaped the way in which I look at stuff. And that definitely comes back in terms of those, in the way that I've been brought up. My parents were slightly older when they had me, and I think being in different positions of their lives, they were able to, obviously they went through a lot of other things that maybe slightly younger people hadn't gone through. So it definitely shaped the way I navigate the world. I mean, you picked on the racism, Ranjit, I mean, massively. Tipped in, but especially the areas that I live, like, used to be no-go areas for people of colour, really. And you still get it, like, in the way people look at you, or growing up, like, a kid will say something like a bit iffy, and you just say, like, you say something to them and then they shut because it's a learned behaviour. But in those days, obviously, like, you just would never walk down the street. They'd be scared walking down the street. They'd go in, like, in groups. And that sort, I think that cautiousness as well is definitely that overthinking, that worry, that anxiety that they had just existing. I think that's also been passed down to me.
I just want to pick something up there, Maya, what you were saying, because some of the things that you were talking about, community spirited, extended, not quite extended families, but families living very close to each other in terraced houses. I mean, that was very much also the experience of, multi-generational, innately English families living in these areas. So in many ways, everybody sort of had that shared experience, didn't they? They also were working class, working in the foundries, and it's an interesting thing when you're the same, but you want to see yourself as different. And it just listening to you, because it just your narration of it made me think actually we're all the same in that sense. It's why people feel threatened, really. That's the issue here. Yeah.
Like, my background's in decolonialism, and I mean, one of the best texts I ever read was Orientalism by Edward Said. Not to go off a different tangent, but that is all about the idea of othering, and that as a political tool in like colonial movements and anti-independence movements. It's divide and conquer, essentially, is to use identity and what that means. And identity is a completely changing thing in itself, a social construct, but using differences to make you see somebody as other and therefore inhuman, and therefore have no respect, and see them as just an obstacle in your way instead of a different human being, and then to use that as a tool to incite violence. It's that sort of mentality. And racism is innately violence as a discipline, and decolonialism. I mean, colonialism is inherently violent. And one of the things I did want to say as well is that when my great-grandparents or grandparents came over to this country in the 50s and 60s, they lived with Caribbean families who'd come over at the same time. A lot of people lived in houses with Caribbean families as well. So, there was massive community spirit in terms of people from different experiences, different backgrounds, living in the same house, the same areas.
This is one of the things I love about talking about heritage, because I think for me, we're always looking ahead, aren't we? We don't spend time looking back. And you just reminded me of something that I remember from the 1970s when I was young and going to people's houses. They'd have like a lodge, and they might be from the African Caribbean community. And it was like that sort of inclusivity and support for each other, because people didn't have that. They couldn't go elsewhere because people wouldn't welcome them in. So that's a really good point. So thanks for reminding me of that. I just want to move on a little bit, because I know you spend a lot of time, I think, in your working life and your personal life as well, because you're passionate about this, thinking about power, participation and equity. So what first made you question who gets to make decisions, and what does meaningful power sharing actually look like? Because I know that's one of the things that you do in your work and you're very passionate about.
It was genuinely moving from primary school to high school. So I went to girls' grammar school in Warsaw, and I did the 11 plus, but I wasn't tutored. And I didn't want to go to that high school. My head teacher at my primary school had told my parents to try and put me in for the test because they thought I might be able to get in. But I'd never been tutored. I'd never wanted to go. I'd never really heard of a grammar school or anything like that. I didn't want to go there at all. And then by some miracle, I got in. And I think that was a massive culture shock. I was faced with a lot of kids from different experiences, a lot of kids who'd been tutored. Some kids had been to private primary schools and things like that, and they'd come from Sutton Coldfield or Great Barr and, Aldridge. And I was a kid from Tipton, and I just didn't, it was complete, and they thought differently, they communicated differently. Nobody spoke like me. I had a really strong Yam accent when I was younger. But a lot of them were taught how to think because they were tutored from a very young age. And I think that it really stifles a child's critical thinking and lateral thinking. And I think that was very clear to me. And I remember thinking, just being in the school and these kids are going to get more opportunities. I went to university in Sheffield, just being like a brown kid from the black country, and especially in the art and humanities department, they had multiple different pathways and schemes for underrepresented students in arts and humanities. And I got onto one of their programs where they paired you up with a community organisation within Sheffield. And it was all about creating localised impact, social impact, and placemaking. I was paired with the Migration Matters Festival in Sheffield. I did history and I did French. So in history, I did a lot of decolonial projects and things like that. Then I did a year abroad in France as part of my degree. I was in Aix-en-Provence, which is right next to Marseille. I spent a lot of time in Marseille learning about the history of that.
It's really interesting because I think a lot of your work is working with sort of disadvantaged groups and communities and people who have been disempowered. The power's been taken away from them. So, I mean, I've worked in community settings, as you know, as well, within public health, and Sundry, within your work in the medical field, you've worked in those areas as well. So one of the things we were talking about the other day was around tokenism. And how do you feel, Mya, organisations can avoid tokenism? Because you've probably seen this, haven't you, in organisations where you get people higher up who go, yeah, we're going to do this, this and this, and you can see straight away it's just there to tick a box or something like that. What would you say?
Yeah, no, thank you for putting me back. I was going off on a tangent.
No, you weren't. I think it was all really, a lot of the thread through your work is around that. And that's why I think it'd be interesting and to hear your views on that, because I think you've got a lot of experience, even though and we didn't say this at the outset, you're quite young, you're in your early 20s, and but you've got a lot of experience so soon in life.
Yeah, I think the experience point is I just grab any opportunity that I'm given, because I know that if I don't make the most of it, it might be my last. And I think that, is instilled in me, I've had to work to where I am. In terms of the tokenism, I'm actually writing a guidance piece on this for Cooperatives UK, so plug that. But I do think that, I think tokenism is a massive problem in terms of anything. In terms of any inclusive directed sort of action, tokenism is always a massive risk. One of the easiest ways, in my opinion, that you kind of get rid of that is to create pathways right from the start in any sort of structure or culture or anything like that. It's about creating accessible pathways into things, so you're not just plucking people who might on face or in a 2D sense represent what you're looking for. One of the things tokenism loves is an empty promise, or an empty position, really, like a position that doesn't mean anything and doesn't give them any real power. If you really want to truly commit and be meaningful and impactful in what you want to do, you have to ensure that that position or that role that person plays, is able to directly feed into and shape what you're trying to do.
Thank you so much. There's so much passion in what you do and what you feel, and that's what sort of drives you. What we call your driving force, your prana is there. Obviously, really been shaped by your diasporic and childhood experiences. Really, I think that's wonderful. But I just wanted to make 4 little points. First of all, props to you. You got in on your own merit, so that's wonderful. Secondly, my father-in-law, who is about 200 years old, he is white from the Black country, failed his 11 plus. He never forgot it, but became a very successful GP. So in many ways, that idea of fighting for what you want and what you need, because he came from a very working class family too. So that's, a little thread that goes through there. And the next point I wanted to say was we have Russian and French in the room. Of
yes,
course,
I speak Russian.
Ranjit speaks Russian. You speak French, but you learned. I grew up with Malay and Tamil, so lots of languages going on here. Yes, I just wanted to say those 4 things really as you were speaking.
I know when we were discussing this beforehand, one of the areas that Sundry was very excited about, because I've been talking about it for the whole of this month. We're recording this towards the end of July, and this is South Asian Heritage Month. And Mya and myself are the West Midlands regional coordinators, so we're joint West Midlands regional coordinators. It's been extremely busy this year. I'm exhausted. I don't know about you, Mya, but in a nice way. It's been so good to see so much has happened and so much interest, and we've had so many conversations with people, and our role has been to connect people. We want them to work together, and that has happened. And Sundry, I know you've got a lot of questions to ask.
So tell me how South Asian Heritage Month came about and what it actually means.
South Asian Heritage Month started about 6-7 years ago. So there's 2 people, Jasveer Singh and Benita Kane. Benita's a medic, and Jasveer works as a barrister, lawyer, I think in family law. And they identified this as a gap, and that's where it started. So me and Mya joined last year as region coordinators. And it was through our work at the Grand Theatre, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. Again, I owe it to you. You were just approaching one day and was like, Mya, I've been involved with this thing. Do you want to get involved with it? I was like, yeah, sure. I had some free time at that point. I don't have any free time anymore. But yeah, it kind of went from there. South Asian Heritage Month is all about celebrating and honouring South Asian heritage within the UK and the countries that make up South Asia, and making sure that they all get the spotlight they deserve as well, because a lot of the time those narratives are dominated by, you know, India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, and, you know, there's a lot of countries, Bhutan, Nepal, Sri Lanka, Afghanistan, Maldives. I've not missed any, have I, Ranjit?
I was going to say, you've done really well, and I know you haven't got notes in front of you. You just said that from the top of your head. Yeah, I think there's details on the website if people want to get the full list of countries, because there's so many, aren't there? And I think one of the things that you talked about was the experiences being overlooked in our communities. And Sundri, when we've spoken, we've talked about sort of the Southeast Asian experience. And I know that a lot of the things we've talked about in this podcast and with some of the guests are sort of South Asian, but we are bringing in Southeast Asian people for their experiences. And Sundri, I think one of the fascinating things you've talked about is the similarities in some of these experiences. So Mya, what do you think in terms of South Asian Heritage Month? I mean, we're coming to the end of the month, but really we're trying to encourage people to look at this throughout the year, aren't we?
Yeah, we really want this to be something that people take into account, you know, across the entire year. It's things that should be, you know, completely integrated within curriculums and just culture, and just in terms of what happens as a country. I think South Asian stories should definitely be slightly more definitely a lot more platform than they are now. I think it's almost like an invisible body in a way, in terms of dominant narratives and culture and things like that, and stuff you see in the media. I think, you know, so I definitely think that, yeah, it's all about, we want to make it a whole year thing, essentially.
So because it's been a very busy month, can you pick out any highlights from so far that have happened that you've been to and to share with us? And you, Ranjit, too. Yes.
I mean, Ranjit will say the amazing reception that we went to at Speaker's House. I think, was it last week?
Yeah.
Thank God we were able to get there and back without any, you know, too many train delays. And
it worked really well, didn't it? I was quite surprised, yeah.
We didn't take the tube this time, which made a massive difference in terms of how much I enjoyed it. Because last year it was, oh my God, it was too hot. Yeah, no, it was really lovely. And, you know, they had really amazing people there. And, you know, they had performances, and it was just a really nice day.
So this is the event that I'd mentioned to you, Sundri, and unfortunately there was no plus ones. So
yes, the one I wasn't invited to. Never mind.
Sundri got FOMO. Well, hopefully one day we'll be. We don't get plus ones for these. It's really strict.
Mya, I love an outing. So there you go.
We're going to something next Friday, which is part of the South Asian Heritage Month, right at the end. So that might be the best one of them all. But yeah, that event with the Speaker's House, it's really nice because the Right Honourable Sir Lindsay Hoyle invites key people to that event to celebrate the work they've done. So it's really nice after everything we've done, I think, and the whole team that work around this. It was great for everyone to come together and have a bit of time to celebrate and see each other in person, because they're all based around the country. So that was really good. And then also the Grand Theatre, Mya, do you want to talk about what happened there?
Yes, please talk about that.
Yeah, the Grand Theatre had 3 events consecutive Saturdays. There was Rangal Sadar, so a concert that was more Punjabi folk music. There was Havoc Barrier, which was last weekend, which was Qawwali and Ghazal, and that was amazing.
Yes, that was really good.
And then there was another one.
So during the day they had, on that Saturday, they had some activities during the day, like sari printing, and they had some poetry workshops. There was a range of activities through the day.
And there was another show.
Yeah, there was another show which I didn't able to get to. That was like a collection of musicians. But yeah, so the Grand Theatre's done quite a bit in partnership with Javan Patel Company. Who I'm also on his board as well.
Yeah, Ranjit gets everywhere.
I'm just getting everywhere. In Wolverhampton, if there's an organisation in Wolverhampton that's South Asia
Has Ranjit ever told you he calls it the Hamptons?
Yeah, I've heard him say it in real life. Yeah, I've heard him say it many times.
People roll their eyes down when they hear it, but new people love it.
I love it.
But yeah, and Wolverhampton Grand as well has been, you know, their stuff for South Asian Heritage Month. And there was an event in Coventry which was in partnership with NHS Blood and Transplant Service, I believe, which was a fashion show all around raising awareness of transplants and organ donation within the South Asian community and the need for that as well. And that was amazing. And then I was also been involved with putting on an event that happened this Wednesday in Birmingham at Brig Cafe in the city centre, and that was around platforming many young artists from the diaspora and their sort of experiences, showcasing some of their work. And there was also guest talks about the intersection of art and activism with Hardish Verk, who Ranjit and I both know very well, as well as Mukhtar Dal, who was part of the Asian youth movement and has done a lot of work across the country around Asian
So Mya,
activism.
I mean, you're so multifaceted, and you're, for me, super young. And so where do you see a path that goes forward? Do you see yourself dividing yourself equally in all these different paths, or perhaps you see yourself maybe merging into one? This may be a question that is hard for you to answer because of the age you are, but, what's the 5-year Mya? What's the 7-year Mya, maybe? Yeah.
Gosh, I mean, I don't really know. I mean, I know I want to continue to do something around the work that I'm doing. Ideally, I would like to kind of merge it into one thing, because currently right now I have no real free time. I work full time as like a fundraiser, writing grants and working with corporates, things like that. And then obviously I do South Asian Heritage Month on a volunteer basis, but in a strategic capacity and things like that. So I think looking forward, I would like to kind of bring it all together in some sort of way. I think one of the things that I'm really keen as well myself is just not to box myself into one sector or one job or one career pathway. I'm very interdisciplinary in that way.
I had a similar mentality, although I was a medic. Within medicine and general practice, you could do lots of different things. So a very wise professor once told me, if you do all the things your heart desires, in many ways the portfolio will follow it. So that's the thing to sort of remember. There are key things, threads that pull you through. But the super busy Mya, what does she do to relax is what we want to know.
I mean, I make jewellery. I should have brought some of my jewellery that I make and it's upstairs.
Yes, you make jewellery. We were talking about on the train ride on the way down to London.
I make jewellery in my spare time just to relax myself, and I embroider as well, like, again, sometimes to relax myself.
Do these have heritage aspects to it, your jewellery and your embroidery, or not?
Not in a way it does. I mean, bright colours, different designs.
Well, that one piece of jewellery you had, I thought was real gold because it looked like Indian gold, and I was like, "What are you wearing that for? We're going to London. It's going to be snatched." And you're like, "No, it's not real gold." No,
I made it. Like, it's just beads from Hobbycraft. Like literally, it's beads from Bentley Bridge Hobbycraft.
Well, that's near where I live.
Yeah, I know. Like,
shout out to Bentley Bridge Hobbycraft.
Bridge, yeah, I love Hobbycraft. I just make jewellery in my spare time to kind of relax myself. I go to the gym a lot, walk in nature, spend time with friends, that sort of thing. I like to keep constantly busy myself. I mean, one thing I did want to say in terms of like where I want to go next, I do have a big interest in Regeneration, but slightly more community centred, and a lot of that is through my mother. My mother's done a lot of work. My mum's done loads of work with, in Regeneration, and she's, been one of the top people for that, in the area in Smethwick particularly. And yeah, my mum's one of the biggest inspirations I have. She's definitely just been the model that I mould myself on.
So another bit of disclosure, I know Mya's mom, so we worked together in the past. But just going back a little bit, the reason why, when I spoke to Mya about South Asian Heritage Month, because I'd spoken to the organisers, they were like, will you be the region coordinator? And I was like, well, I'm not on my own. And I could sense, Mya has all these different aspects to her. And, they say birds of a feather flock together. I'm very into that portfolio way of thinking, things that excite me, I'll start doing. And I noticed that with you, Mya. Sundari, you're the same as well with your poetry, medical background. And all your other creative things that you do as well that we've talked about. And home interiors, you're great with home interiors.
Ooh, I love home interior design, just generally.
Sundry is very good. So just moving on slightly, because we're almost towards the end of our show and we've covered quite a lot of ground. But thinking about the younger you, Mya, is there anything that, looking back, what do you think young Mya would be most surprised by? You're very young anyway, so you don't have to look too far. Not like us, we'd have to go back a long way.
I think one of the things that does stick out is my way of thinking, and I think as a kid I didn't really understand why I thought differently to a lot of different people, and I would ask why a lot, like maybe not out loud, but I'd always say like why, like something would happen and I'd always overanalyze it, or just analyze every single little bit of everything very much in an overthinker sort of way. I think that actually, getting older, that's been one of the things that I actually really value. And I think it would be the fact that that is actually something valuable to me now. That's something that I actually pride myself on, is my ability to hyper-analyze, maybe to my detriment, to things and what happens around me. And also the fact that I am very much myself. I never change, not in a stubborn way. I'm flexible and I can't, but in terms of my morals and my integrity, I think that's something that's always taken me through. I say what I say and I mean what I say, and I kind of stand on that. And I've always
Mya,
been like that.
I do think just because we're coming to a close, before Ranjit sort of sums up things, because lots of things, lovely things to sum up, but I think you're an inspiration to the Gen Z diaspora. So I wanted you to hear it from Ranjit and me, being oldies. Well done. And carry on doing it. Yeah.
No, I really appreciate that. But again, for myself, I don't know if people will take me as an inspiration, and don't, at the same time, be yourselves and be proud of who you are and take pride in yourselves. I think that's one of the biggest things.
And this is what we want to do with these stories. I mean, Sundry and myself have been talking about ourselves for the last few episodes, and just bringing other people in and hearing their stories, it's always inspirational. I think, one of the things that we're very interested in is the complexity and diversity of South Asian or Southeast Asian identities. And, through what we've discussed today, there's the influence of your childhood, your family, your place, like Tipton and the Black Country, been really important. And I love the way you're proud of the Black Country as well, because I think for a lot of people, they're not proud of where they live or they want to get away, but actually you have to appreciate what you're around and help develop it. And that's what you're trying to do as well, in developing that environment around you so it's better for other people. And being proud Black Country woman alongside your British Asian heritage, I think that's amazing.
Yeah. I think
that's great. Well, Mya, normally we always ask the guests to leave us with a final thought. I mean, you've given us several quotes which are wonderful, but perhaps you have just another piece of final thought that you want to tell us, or a quotation, and why you chose that. That'd be lovely for us to hear.
Yeah, sure. So I chose a quote from Bell Hooks, who is one of my favourite decolonial writers. It's from a essay collection, Outlaw Culture, Resisting Representation. So the quote is, "The function of art is to do more than tell it like it is. It's to imagine what is possible." And I think that just kind of sums up what I do. I mean, I don't know if I would say all the things that I do is necessarily art. I mean, art is an interpretation in what it is, or maybe it is, but I do think that ethos kind of represents everything that I do. What is the better solution? How can we make this better? And that's kind of something in my brain. It's like, how can we constantly improve this to make it the most inclusive, the most accessible, not just for people, but also for environmental stuff as well, because I work for an environmental charity and I'm learning so much in terms of the actual benefit for nature. And because our focus is urban conservation, urban environmentalism, that in itself, learning more about environmental justice and how that intersects with social justice, which is more my background and that sort of stuff, it's been really eye-opening.
I think that feels like the perfect way to end a conversation, which has been around activism, creativity, creating spaces for change. I think, it encapsulates all of what you do. So thank you so much for joining us and for sharing your experiences so openly, Mya.
No, thank you for having me both.
Thank you. See you again another day, Ranjit.
Yes, we'll see you again soon. Take care.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye, Maya.
Shy and chat.